This is episode number 468 of the Health and Fitness Podcast by InnerFight, brought to you in association with Smith Street Paleo. Hop over to smithstreetpaleo.com, check out what they have to offer, all those sweet treats that you love, or if you are thinking seriously about your food, which you should be, you can hop on to one of their meal plans, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, 7 days a week, breakfast, lunch or dinner, whatever you want. Please go and check them out and see what they have to offer. And as we have been doing for a long time now, if you rate and review the podcast in iTunes, send us a screenshot of that. We will send you a goodie bag full of Smith Street Paleo goodies, so long as you live in the UAE. That's the only condition. Today's show, I'm super excited about. Recorded this one a while back, and it is an absolutely awesome show with a guy who has competed at the top of his sport, knows what it's all about, and explains it in such great detail. And he's joined with his wife. They're doing some great things in Australia. So, guys, without further ado, let's jump into today's show. Welcome back to another show, folks, and this is another one of a couple that are all the way on the other side of the world. I want to welcome on to the podcast Pete and Jaimielle Jacobs, all the way from Australia. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time to join me. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having us on the show. We're excited to be chatting to you in Dubai.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very excited. Thank you, Marcus.
Not at all. I mean, you guys, that's quite a cool place to kick off, actually. You guys have just recently launched your own podcast. Folks, go and check it out. Live Your Own Fit. Tell us a little bit about the podcast, and obviously you've got a massive online business. So let's jump into that to kick it off. You tell us what's going on, folks.
The podcast is partly I want to be able to share a lot of my knowledge that I've learned through being a professional triathlete, and a lot through what I've learned chasing my tail, trying to figure out my fatigue issues and health issues. Yeah. And I've met so many incredible physicians in so many different aspects of health that, you know, I've learned from them, but I'd love to ask them more questions, and hopefully they'll come on my show, our show, and I'll be able to ask them more direct questions and share that with everyone else as well. And also the other part of it is Jamie and I just talking about our own health journeys and our own health business, and just anything that we can share that we come across to get other people listening, because we listen to a hell of a lot of podcasts ourselves, and that's where we've learned so much from.
What's your favorite podcast, Pete? Come on, I always like this one. I normally get this one out at the end, but you've come in with it, mate. What's your favorite podcasts?
At the moment, I'm listening to one called The Keto Answers with a doctor, and I can't remember his name, but Keto Answers. That's pretty high on my rotation at the moment.
Right.
But yeah, it kind of, it goes in phases, doesn't it? You kind of hit one pretty
time.
Solid for a while and go through different phases. So and James?
I think mine is, I really like the Primal Blueprint podcast and the Endurance Planet podcast.
Awesome.
Yeah, Endurance Planet was one of the first that I listened to heavily with Tawny Prazak. And that's where she had Phil Maffetone on a lot there.
Yeah.
And that's where I then really took on everything that I was learning from Phil. And then eventually a couple of years ago made direct contact with Phil, and we had a couple of chats directly and then in person when he visited Australia. And yeah, that's a big part of our influence on, our approach to health.
Let's go into that. What is your approach to health? Folks, just check these guys out. Hop over to their website, liveyourownfit.com. What's the approach of Live Your Own Fit, guys?
Very much like the ones we've mentioned, like Primal Blueprint and Phil Maffetone. It's big picture, and so everything matters, and you've got to keep stepping back further and further to see the primary issues rather than treating the minor issues, rather than treating, a sore calf as a sore calf. Look at, well, how did that happen in the big picture? Was it, dehydration? Was it stress from work? Was it poor nutrition? Was it, that you've been training too hard and a pure sugar burner, so you haven't got a good blood flow? What was it really? Got to keep stepping back further and further until you see all of those influences, which is nutrition, sleep, rest, relaxation, recovery, all the major ones that we have as our pillars, and just talk to people. When we talk to people, you keep peeling back the layers of what it is that is their primary trigger, I guess, for their poor health symptoms. So just trying to get people big picture, holistic, every angle, and never really think that you've got the answer. Always be like, well, it could be this, but we could learn something brand new next week that is going to be, the key for you. But we'll just keep trying and keep learning.
Do you find that people like, okay, my calf's sore, I've still got something in it, let's massage it out and that's going to fix it. Like, that's almost like, if we use that example, that's kind of how people have approached issues before, where like they just think that that's the problem, so the solution lies in that. But as you said, mate, like, it's so much deeper in a lot of scenarios, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, most people would still think that stretching would have prevented it or fixed it, when stretching isn't the answer to anything much at all. So it's people treating the spot that is sore, or they think it's tight when tightness isn't actually tightness. It's just, overactiveness, or just stickiness if it's not hydrated and fluid and the fascia's not moving. It's so many different things. But people do tend to just think, oh, it's just the calf, I'll just treat just that one particular area, when so often it's coming from the back of their neck or somewhere completely oblivious to the area that's injured.
Absolutely. Mate, Pete, I want to sort of continue on this a little bit, because obviously you've had, and we could have used this to introduce you, but apparently you're a little bit shy, and Jamie has to get it all out of you. But mate, you were the world champion Ironman in 2012. So congratulations for that, mate. I mean, it's just absolutely phenomenal that we get to talk to you on our show. But you obviously, as you said there as well, you had issues with fatigue. Talk to us about those, mate, because this approach that you're talking about sort of enabled you to peel back the layers and get to the root cause of your issue. So do you want to talk us through that?
Goes fair way back to when I was a teenager, and suddenly some swim sessions I just couldn't get my heart rate up. Jump in the water and everything just went flat. And that was the feeling that, came and went throughout, all of my career. But I learned to manage it, and I would see many different people throughout that time. And each person would obviously, it wasn't the answer, but every little bit that I learned contributed to improving my position that I was in. So, let's say now I might think, okay, a big part of it would have been that my sympathetic nervous system was overactive and my brain activity was very imbalanced. So many different things that I learned over time. I used to do yoga for a time, unknown to me, that was helping me get through a period. And then I swapped over and I did some weights and some almost meditation, relaxation techniques while doing some physical activities. And then I learned a lot of mindfulness, and then I was doing a lot of other things for my health. So there was always something, looking back now, that I didn't know what the answer was, and I still am trying to get an exact answer, and I never really will.
Wow.
But I was always doing something and learning something from somebody else that worked for a period, because it helped my body rehabilitate faster and better, when I was doing it consistently. But then I would have another bout of fatigue that might come back as I got older, after winning in 2012, the following year, I was 30 then, so age and just accumulation of stress. Then that year started to get more injuries, just unexplained sort of tightnesses and weaknesses. And then I would get fatigued that instead of being a day or a week like it was when I was younger, it became, a month or 2 months.
Wow.
But then once it had gone, I could just get back into training and I'd feel amazing. And it was just absolute night and day. And so I kept chasing my tail, because I would have these periods of feeling just absolutely amazing, and knowing that if I could just get like another 6 weeks training together, I know I could go back on the world stage and do well again. But it just I could never get it going again in a consistency like I had before 2012. So I learned, when I was younger, I learned to deal a lot with ego. And obviously if I felt tired on a particular day and dropped off the training pack, it just didn't matter. I could do my own thing quite happily. So that was a part of, obviously that helped with my health because I wasn't stressing about missing a session, about guilt, about all those other forms of emotional stress. And I didn't push myself too hard when I already felt pretty lousy. I could take a day off quite comfortably and let my body rest and listen to it. So I learned a lot of skills through that period and still am. But things that I was doing back then that I didn't really understand how they connected. But in the last couple of years, I've learned a lot from, starting to really talk to people like Phil Maffetone and another guy that learned from Phil, a doctor in Melbourne. And I'm really learning a lot from them and tying everything in that I've learned in the past as to how it did impact me, how it affected all these things that I didn't understand back then, like my nervous system and inflammation from food and sleep and all of these other hormonal things that I now, have a much better understanding of. And that's why I want to try and pass it on, because I can say, hey, these are the things that I was doing and this is why they worked and this is why I did well. But now I can explain the science, the facts behind why it worked. Whereas before it was just, well, I was doing that and it worked, but without solid concrete evidence, I would then sort of move on to the next thing and I'd go a phase without doing that thing that really helped me because I didn't understand why it helped me. But now that I understand, I'm much more diligent about doing all of those different factors, and now I've just got to try and put them all together for a period. Yeah, that's the hard thing. You can know so much, but trying to fit it all into a day or a week or a month, it can still get distracting other things, and you forget all the things that you need to do for yourself. But yeah.
Is that the goal, mate, to take sort of what you've learned over the last few years through the situation that you got yourself in and sort of compete at a high level again, or where's it kind of going for you?
Yeah, I've still got that same drive to test the limitations of my body that got me there in 2012. And that is exactly the same. And the more that I've learned, the stronger my urge is to put it into practice. Cool. I really want to be on the head of the front of the curve for the next wave of, I guess, science coming into practice in the endurance world, because obviously everybody's talking about low carb, high fat and keto and, exogenous ketones and all of these different things. And obviously now, we know more about how inflammatory foods. And I just think, wow, if I could, and breathing, I'm, breathing, just nose breathing, and I'm improving the efficiency in everything that I'm doing. Yeah. And if I'm like, wow, I'd just love to put this all together and get back there and have another great race in Hawaii. Yeah. And I'm 36 now, coming up on 37 this month. Yeah. And, but guys have won it in their 40s, so there's plenty of time.
Mate, the UCI Championships the other day, who is it? It's like almost 40, isn't he? Valverde.
Was it Valverde?
Yeah. And I mean, and I think that's one thing you've probably got on your side as well, mate. Like the age that you are, you've definitely, there's definitely has to be a couple of visits to Hawaii left in the tank there, doesn't there?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. So I've taken this year off completely from any serious training and racing, just to really let my body work with my body and hopefully see it come back to some really good, consistent energy levels and health. Yeah. And then just see what happens next year and the year after that. But there's no rush really. I just got to listen to my body. My entire career has been on the back foot listening to my body. Yeah. And luckily it worked well it came good in Kona, 4 years in a row I was top 10, but I was injured at the start of each year or sick, you know, and I had about 6 weeks of absolutely nothing. And that really, you know, helped me perform those 4 years in a row with just a bit of dumb luck that helped my body be rested.
Unbelievable, mate. You've said some really cool things there. I want to hold those thoughts and hop over to Jamie because she sat there just saying nothing.
Yeah.
But I have her sort of bio in front of me. And Jamie, you are an incredible athlete as well. Talk us through some. Did you guys meet through triathlon? You must have done, right? Or is it just?
No. I grew up in a surf club doing surf boat rowing.
Okay.
And swimming and just love running. But Pete and my family were family friends, and we're the youngest, so our siblings were always in teams together, surf teams and swim squads and stuff. So we already sort of knew each other.
Wow.
And then we met out. We met out at the pub one night.
Wow, there we go.
So no, it wasn't through triathlon.
But I mean, it's so cool that you share sort of such similar interests as a sport, and I mean, you're an incredible triathlete, really, aren't you?
I don't think so. It's being up at Noosa and constantly surrounded by, you know, world champions, Ironman champions.
Yeah.
It's hard to, I suppose, well, you don't compare yourself to anyone, but I mean, they're amazing athletes. So, in comparison to what they've all achieved, very much not not anything special. But yeah, it's pretty cool hanging out with the type of athletes and just the personalities.
Yeah.
I have noticed there's a big difference. I think the professional athletes, especially in Noosa that I've been lucky enough to meet and train with, they have this genuine want to make everyone around them a better athlete and a better person, and they'll push you and give you all the help you need, where it's not necessarily always the case with, I suppose, non-professional athletes. Maybe it's a bit more competitive or just a different mindset.
Why do you think that is? Why are we sort of stuck in that? Because you'd almost think that it should really be the other way around, because the pros,
I know,
it's like a living, and the amateurs, like, you're going to go to work on Monday morning, but the amateurs are just not as supportive, are they, a lot?
I think we're just, myself as an amateur, maybe we're just stuck in our own heads too much. And whereas maybe the professional athlete, it's their job, so they don't have that ego around it as much, where we might have more of an ego being an amateur athlete.
Yeah,
I know I have more of an ego than Pete does.
Really? Hilarious. You mentioned something there about environment. Talk to us a little bit. You've both been in, like, obviously competitive environments, professional sports environments. How much of a difference does it make to sort of excelling and becoming almost the best version of yourself, really?
I think being in competitive environments, just being well balanced, I think that's a big key.
Yeah.
And sort of trying not to compare yourself with anyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, we moved up to Noosa. One of the reasons was in Sydney, it's, you know, highly populated, but there was hardly any professional triathletes there.
Right.
So for me, it was to come up around some peers so I could get a bit more of a community feeling around what I was doing. And I wasn't the only person in the world that was, you know, a professional triathlete and doing it full time, day to day. And Jamie needed to get away from her full-time job that was highly stressful and too many days in the week at work. And so it was a good few reasons for us to move up here. And yeah, it's been, as Jamie said, it's been great to be around people that are so driven and always, you know, everyone's wanting to help each other. And yeah, it's quite unbelievable.
Yeah, it's super. I think one of had a few friends that trained in Boulder in Colorado, and they sort of saying the same thing. Like, everyone's there, and it's just such a good environment for triathletes to be in, and everyone's excelling, which is it's quite cool because everyone's sort of heading towards the same thing in their competition, but at the same time, everyone's very supportive, which is also nice.
Yeah, and there are certainly times where it can work against you a little bit, where people want to put their opinion of what worked for them and tell you to do what worked for them, so you should just do that. So sometimes the opinions aren't necessarily helpful, and they can almost, even if you want to try something new and different, sometimes there's the peer pressure for you to not try that new thing, or because often also it can be a bit old school when there's more the majority rules kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's worked so well for so many people. Why would you change it? And, so it can be at times a little bit like that, but you can easily cope with that if you got control of your ego a little bit. And definitely, I mean, when I was training for Hawaii really well back in the years, I was always doing it on my own anyway.
Wow.
So I wouldn't really see anybody for months other than Jamie for like the couple of months leading into Hawaii. I wouldn't, sit at a coffee shop. I wouldn't train with anybody else. I swam in a lane on my own during the day. I didn't do swim squads. So I really reveled in that time to myself to learn about myself and get really good mindset training and tools that I was doing without really understanding what I was doing.
Yeah.
But that's what I was doing. And so I had those times to myself where it was really beneficial that you knew other people were around, but at the same time you can be on your own.
You've both mentioned the word ego half a dozen times.
Sorry.
I think it's really awesome because and we actually jumped, like we attacked amateur athletes straight away, which was quite good. So we're warmed up to really take them apart now.
I'm an amateur athlete.
So am I, so it's all good. But let's talk a little bit more about like your thoughts on that. Like, how does ego sort of hold us back? How does it affect performance? What's your go-to to clients or to people that are, maybe just decent amateurs or trying to get better in, in your sport or in any sport? As coaches, what do you guys put out on that level?
We approach it a bit from Eckhart Tolle perspective, and that's where I really get the definition from ego from him, that it's anything that's not in the present. It's anything in the past or the future. Right. And in the descriptions that I've used, I relate back to in 2012, I had a mantra and the word was love. And I'd got it from a kinesiologist, and he just found that I was stronger if I was using that word, and I wasn't worried about trolls and doubts and fears and my competitors, or if the fans were cheering for someone else more than me, or any of that stuff, which I was visualizing in training. And, if you visualize a sprint finish against your competitor and you suddenly feel a bit weak, there's a bit of an issue with your own thoughts. So I could say the words love to myself though, and just that word cleared all my fears and doubts.
Wow.
And I was able just to be in the moment and in the present, and my training sessions would be that much better. And I use that mantra through training. I used it in terms of my supporters. I told them to cheer for me, remind me that I love this. Wow. I'm here because I love the challenge. I love the heat. And the word love was just my trigger to get me back in the present. Wow. So it took away all my thoughts of, doubts of past races and all the future thoughts of, well, if I'm in this position and this happens, and wow, I've been out here for 7 hours and it's really hot and I'm getting tired. Whereas it was just a trigger for me to come back to the present and forget about anything that didn't make me feel strong, which is the stories that we tell ourselves we're in.
Yeah.
If you tell yourself a story that, you're tired, you can feel tired really easily, just as easily as if you tell yourself you're not that hot and you're out in 30-something degrees running a marathon in Hawaii.
Yeah.
You can actually feel cooler and calmer. And it links back to the impact on the central nervous system, because then the central governor isn't reacting as much, so you can actually push that little bit further because you've got less stress on your system because you are less emotionally stressed and calmer. So it plays into this great circle of beneficial responses in the body if you can forget about ego, if you can learn to control it and be in the moment, in the present, in the now, as Eckhart always explains. And that's what we try and get across to people, which, is kind of a lengthy story and a lengthy bit of words that we send out to them. But we try and just remind them a bit each week what they can be doing to practice being in the moment in little short snippets.
Yeah.
In 5 breaths here and 5 breaths there. And then build up to, okay, now practice it while you're exercising. Okay, now practice it while you're at work in a stressful situation. And just trying to get people to be in the moment and, without the stories of their past or future, which, is their ego. Because it's about, I guess for age groupers, if they get dropped on the bike ride, they're already thinking, oh no, they're going to get back to the coffee shop and they're going to be talking about me, how I got dropped and I was slower than them today. And they're going to talk about me and they're going to think I'm not as good as them and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, none of that exists.
Yeah, yeah.
All it is the story that you're perpetuating inside your own head that is making you feel even more stressed and more fatigued and unhappy. It makes you unhappy, which is the bottom line. Yeah. So trying to get that mindset out of athletes where it's, and that goes in part as well, you have to have that to be able to do the exercise as we suggest, which is MAF training, sticking to your maximum aerobic function, which is 180 minus your age is your heart rate to train at.
Yeah.
And that ties in with ego because so many people will be like, but I'm running so slowly. If they haven't developed their aerobic capacity, they will be running really slowly at their MAF. Whereas then they'll just want to push and run hard and no pain, no gain. And that is all around ego. Just trying to get them to be calm, enjoy the moment, enjoy the process. Yeah.
I think that's it. No, mate, it's a really good answer. It's longer than I expected, but it's a really good answer. And for the listeners, what Pete was referring to there, Eckhart Tolle, go and read his book. It's called The Power of Now. I actually remember I listened to it over 2 quite long bike rides as an audiobook, and I can actually remember some of the bits that you were saying there gave me sort of thoughts back to exactly where I was on my bike when I was listening to that book. So it's a fantastic book. And another thing another book that I think we should chuck out there is a book called Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday, which, to be honest, on this book, I don't know if you guys have read it, you probably have, but
no.
It's, have a look at it, but just read the title. And that's probably enough. So just go online and just look at the title, because the book, it's called Ego is the Enemy, and he just spends 300 pages explaining why ego is the enemy. So if you sort of buy into the fact, which you guys obviously do, that ego is the enemy, then you don't need to spend the time reading the book. But definitely that Eckhart Tolle book, The Power of Now, is super important. And one thing I want to sort of go into with what you were just saying there as well, Pete, is that isn't this a crazy mindset that we're seeing, that so much of, like, you just spoke incredibly for 5 minutes about the power of now and being in the present and not worrying about stuff. It actually has on the top level zero to do with a training plan, zero to do with what you're eating, but it's such a big factor. How big do you think that sort of the mindset side is, and being able to create yourself and to create that moment for yourself in all performance?
Well, the world champs in Hawaii is coming up in a couple of weeks, and I've got a young mate and age group of racing there, and I just keep telling him it is all mental on race day. It is being in the zone is the same as being in the now. Yeah. Being in the zone, which has been written about, in millions of words.
Yeah.
The zone is that feeling where nothing else exists except your, I guess, acute ability to push your body to its limits. And that's that feeling of there's nothing else exists. There's no thoughts. There's nothing else. You can push through pain when there's no thought of pain. And the pain can't really exist when you're, kind of in the moment ahead of it. Yeah. I guess it's hard to say, but the zone. So race day, everybody knows that the zone is important, and it's the same as that mindset of no ego, of practicing being in the moment. Yeah. So that's why training on my own paid off so well, because I was always doing my own pace within my limits, within my own head, within my own kind of consistency. So I wouldn't slack off if someone else was going slower. I was always just right there in the zone, because I wasn't worrying about if someone's dropping off behind me or where will I wait for them. It was just I was always present in my training, which I think, if you're training with a group all the time, people miss out on that time alone, which is really important, so that on race day you can just bring it out of your bag really easily. And race day, you can't train anymore by race day. It is all about how good you are between the ears.
What do you do on race day though, mate? You've been at the top. You've won the ultimate prize in triathlon. What happens? You're on your plan and you've swum your plan, and a few of your competitors are wherever they are. You're aware of where they are, and your bike's going to. Is there a point? What I'm getting to is, what's the point where, okay, now I have to just ditch everything and I have to go all in on this and just make it happen?
It was, I'd come second the year before, so I had 365 days basically of thinking, okay, this year I want the win and only the win. Right. Whereas the year before I was like, I'll be happy with a podium, and I got a podium. So I did a little bit more in training. I looked after myself a bit better in many ways. And I was so relaxed on race day that it was just like a dress rehearsal, because I'd visualized it so much in training. I knew exactly what I needed to do. So there was a couple of moments there where I was patient, because I was calm and, I knew what I needed to do. So if you're not patient, you'll pass at the wrong time, and you can end up with a drafting or passing penalty if you get stuck out wide, which I'd done. That had happened to me a couple of years earlier. Right. So being patient and knowing when to make your move is a big part of it. But then there was a point where there was a break going down the road, and I had to go around a few guys on the bike to bridge up to this smaller breakaway. And that was the point where I was like, all right, well, I feel amazing today. I'm not going to let anyone ride away from me. And I just went with that group, and then I found myself in the lead of the race heading up towards halfway. And at that point, I was just smiling to myself. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, I just feel amazing today. And I was enjoying it. And I ended up getting off the bike in second place, about 8.5 minutes behind. Wow. And the guy in the lead had the world record at the time for the Ironman distance. But in training, I knew that my back would tighten up off the bike. If I go out a little bit too hard, just getting off that crouch type position, my hips would tighten up my back. But if I did a few lunges, everything would loosen up and I'd feel good again, and I'd be able to run well. So about 6 or 7K, I was still 7 minutes behind, not making up a bunch of time. But I knew my back was starting to get a bit tight, and I just knew if I stopped to do some lunges, then that's what I needed to do to get from A to B the fastest that I could. So being able to stop in that situation of sort of pressure and stress and all those decisions, I was able to make that decision to stop, do a few lunges, and then get going again. And it probably cost me, not much, 20 seconds or so, 30 seconds at the most. But that was quite amazing and astonishing to people to see that they thought I was out of the race, because no one stops and does a few lunges.
Oh, mate, it's unreal.
You must be cooked.
Yeah.
But so because I just practiced that so much, I knew that if I did that, I'd be fine. And so sure enough, I did that, kept running, my back loosened off, and at halfway, the other guy totally blew up because he'd gone too hard on the bike. And, I passed him. I had a 5-minute lead. Wow. And, was able to jog home with a 5-minute lead for the second half of the marathon. But a painful story of the zone, being in the zone, is the year before when I got second, and I had a really good battle for second and third place. I passed third for second place about 30k out. Right. And then I blew up. My legs just shattered, and I had to go into real just preservation mode. Just my quads were so sore that I had to try and run more on my toes to just use my calves more. And I knew I was in such agony. I was walking aid stations, which were about a minute long, each of them or more. And the guy caught back up to me. And it's all on video, so I've got all the footage, which is awesome. If he caught back up to me, and I just, in my head, I was like, well, this is it. I either give in and let him go, or I just try and match his pace. So I matched his pace and pushed through the pain, literally just broke through a wall where the pain didn't exist, because I was 6k from the finish line. If I could just run, I'd be, in second. I'd finish in second place. Yeah. So I sat behind him for about a kilometre, and then he cracked. And it's the most pain I've ever been in my life. But because I was focused on this singular goal that I wanted so badly, and the pain was so intense that there was so much that it wasn't even there, kind of thing. You could just block it out. So I was in the zone more than ever, and I crossed the finish line and just broke down in tears, because I'd been at it was just, I'd been to hell and back in that race, more so than when I won the year before. It was much easier. But the year that I came second, I crossed the line. I'd been in such agony for, at least 10 Ks. And just burst into tears when I crossed the finish line and gave Jamie a hug. But that memory of being in the zone under such pain, I'll never forget that as my hardest race ever, where I had to just go to another level. Yeah. And it was a great experience, but I don't have to.
Incredible. Well, mate, we said earlier you're still young. You've got plenty of racing in you, so maybe we'll.
I just hope they're easier. I hope
Does it ever get easier, guys? We've got a little bit of time left. I want to just jump over and focus on sort of what you guys are doing with Live Your Own Fit. As I said, folks, hop over, check out the website. There's loads of stuff on there, liveyourownfit.com. Just give us a little bit, like, what kind of people do you work with? Why should someone come to you? Why should someone go and listen to your podcast? Give us your biggest sales pitch you've got, guys.
I think because we are reasonably in our early days, so we just want to help as many people as we can help. I myself, I'm really passionate about helping women especially. So I'm coming from a place of being an amateur athlete with not much confidence around doing races like triathlon. So just building that inner confidence in someone, the belief systems that they actually can do it. And it's almost to the point of where someone's as crazy and I suppose corny as it sounds, you have to learn to respect yourself and love yourself to be able to treat yourself well. Yeah. And that's, if you do want to line up at race day, you need those two things along with intentions and maybe to be accountable and have that support network as well. So I think that's where I'm coming from very much so is maybe amateur athletes or, new mums wanting to get back into the groove again. I've battled my own, self-doubts in the past and always thinking, that I'm Pete's wife. Everyone's going to expect me to be really good. Yeah. And I've had a lot of fear. So I'm really passionate about saying the fear's in your head. It's all purely your ego. No one's even looking at you. So you've got to tear down those walls. It's all just you putting up those blockages and those barriers.
And as Jamie said, a big part that I learned from her is that if the people don't love and respect themselves and say, my health is worth taking care of and I'm worth taking care of, then you can give them all the information and all the tools under the sun and they won't be able to put it into practice. And as soon as if they do it, they finish the course, then they'll drop off and not continue with it. So getting them in that mindset of, hey, I'm a priority and my health is really important and I need to take time out for myself. Which, even us, just doing the practices of stopping for 5 breaths a few times a day.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm too busy. And it's like, how can you be too busy to just take 5 breaths for yourself? It's unbelievable that our minds are constantly trying to distract us from being in a parasympathetic, relaxed state.
Yeah.
So just trying to get people out of their own heads a little bit, and then adding in just the obvious steps that, just eat good food. We'll help you with your sleep patterns. We'll help you with your exercise routines and get you, fixing up your primary issues and make you happy and whole and fit and achieving whatever goals you've got.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I think you guys have come at it from such a nice perspective, and you both said it like a couple of times there, sort of, love yourself a little bit more. I see it a lot with people that, I don't know if endurance lends itself to this, but, people sign up, I've signed up for this race and, I'm not sure, and the training's hard. And it's like, guys, just like you're going to go to a race, you're going to have one of the most amazing experiences of your life. There's actually training. Okay, yeah, it's hard, but I think even like you were saying, Pete, if you've got your plan and you're in the moment and you're focused, it's actually quite an enjoyable process because it's structure and it's kind of there. And yeah, some sessions are hard, but I haven't met many people after a hard session that don't have a big smile on their face once they get up off the floor.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just remind them of the goal and of their goals and their intentions of why they want to achieve it. Like, you wouldn't sign up to a race if you didn't actually want to achieve that. So this should be a happy journey of you're working towards achieving something you want to do. So that's, I was reminding myself that I loved the challenge. I loved the heat. I loved the pain. Yeah. Everything that came with that moment, that day in my life, I was able just to work towards it with joy because it was something that I knew I really wanted to do. So I never dreaded the journey. It was all just, the highs and lows are just part of it, but it's always, it's just part of it. And you just take it as it comes. And if you're in the moment, the lows don't matter because you forget about them, a second later, it's behind you and let's move on. And
if only we could get everyone on that page. It would be super awesome. I just want to pick, there's one other thing that I can't remember which one of you said it earlier, but I think it's super important. It's a really nice way to sort of close this great chat out, guys. One of you said there's no rush. And I think a lot of the time people are putting like massive time constraints on themselves. Got to get this done, got to get that done, or we're in a world now of this immediate gratification, or I can just order something straight away off Amazon. How do you instill a no rush and a sort of quite a patient, trust the process mindset in yourselves and also in sort of athletes, people that you're working with?
Well, just what I mentioned before, for me, it's looking at a blank wall, a dot on the wall or something boring, and just taking 5 breaths or 10 breaths until I actually feel myself back in the moment and relaxed again. Nice. And it is that thinking of nothing, you have to look at something boring, but doing that is you have to force yourself to do it, quite strangely, because your mind wants to distract you constantly. So for me, it's that moment, it's that a few times a day is where it has to start, I feel, to get that feeling of being in the moment and relaxing your body and your mind as one. And if they're relaxed as one, then they connect, then you're more aware of it, and then that will lead to, much better performances in everything later on in life. But
awesome. Whereas I feel more it's about the bigger picture. So it's thinking, okay, do I want to do the no pain, no gain, have really quick results, but maybe I'll, have to give up in 6 weeks straight after race day because I'll have an injury or some sort of, big fatigue issue. So I think I like to think about more the future and what's the end result? What legacy would I like to leave my grandchildren? Do I want to be a really fit, healthy grandma at the age of 70 rather than, be pre-diabetic or not be able to chase around the grandkids and go bike riding and like I saw that firsthand this weekend. We had Pete's parents stay with us for a couple of weeks, and Pete's mum, also a reason why we're quite passionate about this, is Pete's mum has an autoimmune disease herself, and she's now been, thanks to Pete a lot, been motivated and inspired by Pete to change her way of eating, and she's exercising and
she always exercised, but just the way now that she'll stick to math and she'll know when she's feeling good on a day or not because of the heart rate. So she's learning to listen to her body much more rather than be the impatient kind of like, but I used to be able to do this when I was 30. So why can't I just do that much now? But yeah, it's definitely looking ahead, as Jabe said, the longevity, reminding people that how do you want to feel when you're 80?
Yeah.
That's really important. And definitely getting people to think about their long-term health is a big part of our approach as well.
Like Jenny was Pete's mum. She had the most amazing energy when she was up here, and she just kept saying it's, you know, for her it was being up in Noosa. Obviously, everyone's going to feel better being in Noosa, of course. As you know firsthand. But also the food she was eating, the way she was moving, she had a lightness about her, and she said she felt amazing. Wow. And we've seen a big shift in her and her energy level, so that sort of spurs us on as well. Anxiety. Her anxiety wasn't there. Wow. There were lots of differences, so that eggs us on a lot to help others.
Just be careful you don't do too good a job that she moves in full time with you guys. That's the.
I actually find that.
Oh, that's cute.
As long as she keeps up with the good energy for cleaning and walking the dogs.
Awesome, guys. Well, I've taken plenty of your time, and what you've shared over the last 40 minutes or so has been absolutely brilliant. I'm sure all the listeners are going to take so much from it. So I just want to acknowledge you and thank you for sharing it. And Pete, obviously, congratulations on what you've achieved. And Jamie, congratulations for supporting this guy and for what you've done as well. You say you're not a great athlete. I'm going to embarrass you a little bit. I'm going to read them off. Marathon PB, guys. She has a 3-hour 22 marathon PB from New York City. Tough marathon. Great time. So you're a pretty decent athlete, sweetheart. Don't worry about that.
I actually didn't train for that race, but
her ego. She's got to tell you a story. She's trying to tell you a story and make an excuse because her ego.
Exactly. So
should just be happy with it.
What is it? 4 times Ironman, 70.3 age group champion. Don't worry, I've got all the stats. I'll save them for another time.
I think Pete must have sent you some information there without me knowing.
Always.
To say thank you to you, Marcus, for having us.
Not at all.
We know you've got a pretty amazing story yourself, so we'd love to have you on our podcast.
Absolutely, let's do it. We always definitely, and like I say, I enjoyed what I've listened to from you guys so far. So I want to wish you guys all the best with that. But folks, hop over, check out what these guys are doing. LiveYourOwnFit.com. And folks, if I'm down there and as we said before we started recording, if we're down there in December, we'll definitely hang out, go for a run, do something, talk about living in the moment, and have a good time. So thank you.
That sounds amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, guys, and I wish you a great day.
Thanks,
Marcus.
very much.
Cheers.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Marcus.
Bye.
Bye.